So, as we near the end of yet another Metal Gear Solid development cycle, it turns out Hideo Kojima may be on a Greyhound bus bound for the fuck out of here while the bridges of Konami County crackle and burn the fuck behind him. And look, if you don't know the words to this song by now, you got more memory issues than an Xbox One. Perhaps the longest abiding punchline in the industry is Kojima's seasonal assertion that just one more Metal Gear title and then he's forever finished with the ground-humping heroics of Solid Snake. Until only recently, as an independent contractor, the end of a development cycle also marked the precise point when his contract would expire. And wouldn't you know it, Kojima's contract as a Konami vice president being up for renewal is affixed to the eye of this bullshit Blizzard as well. Hell of a thing, that. Look, maybe Kojima goes on his merry way. Maybe he has another offer lined the fuck up. He's certainly made enough noise about wanting to work with a Western developer in the past, but far more likely he's trying to drum up demand for himself at home so he can get paid right the fuck where he is. When CM Punk's WWE contract neared expiration in 2011, did no one else take note of how suddenly he developed an interest in Ring of Honor and TNA? An interest it was his dutiful pleasure to communicate in every solitary fucking interview he conducted, right up until the moment the Big E signed him to a contract for a considerably larger sum of money? Fancy fucking that! So beyond the fact that in my opinion Hideo Kojima has done more to limit player agency and choice than perhaps any other figure in all of gaming, setting the entire industry back implicitly decades in the process, you'll have to pardon the fuck out of me if I'm not breaking out the Tibetan worry beads just yet. And if the anonymous reports of a corporate conflagration at Konami HQ are accurate, may I humbly suggest that Kojima himself, as vice president of the fucking company for 4 years running, should shoulder a sizable portion of the blame? Look, setting aside the ass-pounding profit that must have resulted from charging $30 for a goddamn demo, let's really analyze the empirical successes of Kojima's half-decade as VP of Konami. I mean, a couple months before ascending to the board of directors, Kojima executive produced the relaunch of Castlevania with a full-blown God of War clone called Lords of Shadow. A game that barely broke 1 million copies, if I recall, and whose sequel left a smoldering sales crater with less than 500,000 sold across all platforms. He re-released Zone of the Enders in HD, moving less than 250,000 units in the process. Hell, even the Ground Zeroes demo, arguably the only true success of his vice presidential tenure, moved less than 2 million units at the end of the day. A success without question, but far from an earth-shattering one. In short, if Hipster Glasses is holding out for more cash, may I humbly advance the notion that his 4 years as vice president do not suggest he fucking warrants one? Take that record and attach it to a random white executive. Assign that string of financial flops and lukewarm successes to Bobby Kotick and tell me with a straight face that he honestly deserves a contract extension and a raise. But leave it to the cult of Kojima to turn a game of contractual chicken over dollars and cents into evidence of their Lord and Savior ascending to outright martyrdom. Within minutes of the news beginning to break, even without it having yet been confirmed, the tributes were already pouring the fuck in, alleging of all things that Kojima's name was being exploited. Well, gosh, who can argue with airtight logic like that, considering this entire controversy was kicked off by Konami removing his name from the goddamn box? And what exactly does it communicate about the man in question? That our first sign that something is actually wrong is that his narcissistic namesake is no longer splayed across the upper third. To give you just a subatomic sampling of the fanaticism on offer from the Kojima death cult, a few months back I released an episode of Razor Fist Arcade where I did a blind playthrough of the first few minutes of Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes. In the last seconds of that gameplay, I encountered a ridiculous glitch where I cut a guy's throat, he inexplicably popped back up, stood there, the alarm suddenly went off for no apparent reason, at which point I had no fewer than 5 filleting fanfucks accuse me of either hacking the game or doctoring the footage in order to cast implicit aspersions on Hideo Kojima. That is the cult of Kojima. There's no speaking to them. There can be no reasoning with them. No pie charts, graphs, or irrefutable evidence of incompetence can dissuade them from their cherished beliefs. It's a unique species of glassy-eyed zeal that, when applied to any other person, means you could place them physically in the observatory with Professor Plum in a pool of blood and a candlestick within arm's reach, and they would still refuse to convict Colonel Mustard. And let's be real, he doesn't deserve it, not even slightly. Stripping away the cutscenes, lens flare, and maudlin music score, not to mention the omnipresent present Kojima hype cycle, if we're assigning a letter grade to actual gameplay, the Metal Gear Solid series would be firing off more C's than a Mexican orgy. I'm Razorfist God. Fucking speed!